Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Councillor Chris Atwell, Chair of the Planning Committee. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they so wish. The public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. We will assemble at the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street past the University's Park building if necessary. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. So may I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please, can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when you are finished, otherwise the camera will remain on you. Some of you might like that. Please, can everyone make sure their mobile phones are not too close to the microphones, as this can cause interference. During the voting, please can members keep their hands raised clearly until the number of votes have been stated. Let's do some introductions. If we start with the front row here of the committee. Which way should we go? There you go.
Judith Smythe, St Jude Ward, member of the Planning Committee.
Good morning, Judith, thank you.
Mary Vallely, Cosham and Wimmering.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Chair. John Smith, Eastern Craneswater.
Good morning, John.
Councillor Russell Simpson, Hilsey Ward.
Good morning, Russell. Nice to see you.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Darren Sanders. I'm from Baffins Ward. I'm a standing deputy on this committee and I'm deputising for Councillor Lee Hunt.
Good morning, Darren.
Peter Candlish, Eastern Craneswater Ward.
And good morning, Peter. Officers, if you could introduce yourselves.
Good morning, my name is Kieran Laven. I'm one of the Council's planning solicitors.
Thank you, Kieran.
Good morning, Chairman. Ian McGrath, Assistant Director for Planning and Economic Growth.
Good morning, Ian.
Morning, Chair. Edward Chetwin-Stapleton, Development Management Team Leader.
Thank you, Edward.
Alison Harper, Local Democracy Officer and Democratic Services.
And good morning, Alison. Can I ask anybody else who is intending to speak during today's meeting to introduce themselves? Should we start on the back there?
Mark Holman, HRP Architects, talking in regard to Fratton Road.
Morning, Mr. Holman, thank you.
I'm Simon Hill and I'm speaking on 37 Henderson Road, 47 Oriel Road and 80 Chichester Road.
Good morning, Mr. Hill, nice to see you.
Good morning, Chair. Councillor Susie Horton. I am here as Ward Councillor for Central Southsea Ward and therefore speaking on 59 Manners Road.
Good morning, Susie.
Good morning, Carrie-Anne Wells. I'm agent for Applecore and I'm speaking on behalf of 5 of the items on today's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie-Anne.
My name's Tracy Jones and I'm speaking on Fratton Road.
Good morning, thank you.
Morning, my name's Caroline Trimnall. I'm a member of Southsea Self-Help Housing Cooperative and I will be speaking on Fratton Road.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Lee Hunt and Councillor Raymond Dent, I think. Members, declarations of interest?
I can do that as well as another apology from Councillor Gerald Vernon Jackson. He may be late due to an issue with his husband or he may not be here. It depends upon how that pans out. As far as declarations of interest are concerned, I know Tracy, who is one of the objectors, but I have not discussed that particular application with her. Also, 305 to 307 Twyford Avenue is a housing development which I've agreed the money for, so therefore I wish to withdraw my not take part in the committee's proceedings on that one. I also will have to leave it around about 20 to 1. So
Okay.
you may wish to fiddle around with the agenda accordingly, Chris.
Will be deeply unpopular if I fiddle around even more with the agenda.
Okay, I'll do what I'm told, Christopher.
Okay. Any other declarations?
I will have to leave about 12:30.
Okay.
Chair, I'm going to give a declaration of interest in respect of Henderson Road. I've been speaking with the residents and I'm just going to take myself out from that conversation.
Okay, and you've spoken with Kieran about that. Okay. Okay, thank you. Members, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 10 of your pack. Are we happy that they are an accurate record? Councillor Sanders, if I could ask you to turn your microphone off, thank you. Are we happy? Proposer? Councillor Smythe, proposer? Anybody want second? Councillor Vallely, thank you very much. Okay, to today's substantive business, and the first application is Manners Road. Ian, you're presenting.
Thank you, Chairman. Most of today's agenda are HMOs. As you know, we're going to do some of those HMOs, then I'll pass over to my colleague to do the other two non-HMO applications, then we'll come back and do some more HMOs as we go through. 59 Manners Road. This is an application for a change of use from its current use, which is within use class C4, it was a 5-bed HMO, to an 8-bed HMO. There's the property on through there, that's what it looks like. As members, I'm sure, are aware, this is an area that is substantially unbalanced in terms of its community mix. We're about 46% of properties within the designated 50-metre circle are already HMOs, obviously including this one. It doesn't change that number. So we remain at 46%, but obviously we're adding 3 additional residents to the property, and consequently, in accordance with your SPD, the judgment is whether those 3 additional residents have an impact on amenity within the already unbalanced community, as well as compliance with your policies associated with space design, etc. These are the spaces within the building. They comply with your standards as laid out in paragraph 517. As you can see, all the rooms are over 10 metres in this case, in which case the lower of the 2 numbers we've included in the table there, 22.5 square metres, is the requisite minimum standard for the combined kitchen area. There's 27 square metres for that, so it exceeds it. All of the bathrooms, toilets equally exceed the requirement, so fully compliant with your adopted space standards. Sorry. Bin store is in the back of the garden, access through the property to get there. As you can see, the permitted development works that facilitate this increase in occupation have already occurred, and indeed the internal works to lay out the property have been carried out as well. Some images there. I'll take you back and leave you on that. We have public speaking from the agent and Councillor Horton. Obviously happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ian. So we've been joined by Councillor Vernon-Jackson. Any declarations of interest?
No, I'm sorry to be late, but my husband is not well, and therefore I'm only here for a bit. I've got to get him to hospital.
Okay, grateful for you to be here. Councillor Horton, over to you, 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing this agenda item to go to the top, as I have a meeting that I need to attend. I just want to say, I'm not going to go through my usual thing about HMOs, you'll be pleased to know. I will specifically point out some certain points that I think are relevant to this application. Suffice it to say that I am absolutely supportive of high quality shared accommodation across the city. I think I'm well known for actually saying that, and I've got no reason to believe that this particular building is anything other than that. And as Mr Maguire has highlighted, I have double checked the space standards and they definitely meet them. So I want to start from that perspective. There's a couple of things on the report that I was a bit confused about. It says that it's class 3, but the title says it's C4. But we've established that it's already in use as an HMO. I just want to focus on a couple of things. One is what I have traditionally called the just one more effect. And I know that Mr Maguire has covered this, but actually then we go to just 2 more, and now this is just 3 more in an area that is, as has just been highlighted, 46% of HMOs or more. This causes significant material difference as far as I'm concerned. And I think the refusal in July of the certificate of lawfulness in order to bring it for another review probably highlights the fact that this is not completely straightforward. So I just really want to highlight one main thing, which is the impact of amenity. 5 people to 8 people in all of those houses would make, I think, a demonstrable difference, which most of us would probably agreed on. I know the way planning works, that we have to focus on the item in question, but that 51%, as it says in the report, increase in occupation, I think will lead to a material difference in terms of amenity in that particular residence. The thing that I want to highlight the most is really about bins and storage. We know that we have a real problem. In fact, there's a targeted piece of work at the moment along that road for this very reason. And it might be that even the most reasonable of residents, once you increase from 5 to 8, actually will find it very, very difficult to meet their responsibilities in terms of the disposal of their waste. I've been down to there over the last couple of days. I think maybe with bin sizes that would be allocated to that size of house, you might struggle to even get them into the forecourt. This property does have a forecourt, whereas some of them don't. I notice in the application it says bin store in the forecourt. Don't know what that looks like. I've never seen a bin store in one of those forecourts before, so I'd be interested if the committee were minded to approve this and go with Officer's recommendation, whether they could stipulate a little bit more detail. I say that because there's another case, unrelated, in Britannia Road, where I raised this in planning. There were stipulations made, they weren't, and they were adhered to, but it still hasn't done the job. Anyone who comes around, cuts through Britannia Road, will notice that there is a perpetual problem with rubbish, which is not the fault of the individual residents, but it is a major issue for the community. So that is the main point that I want to make, is because of the already high density of people, we already have a problem, particularly around rubbish. And I think that an increase in occupancy from 5 to 8 in this particular house, no matter how good it is actually something that would have an impact on amenity in the area. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Horton. Carry on.
Good morning. I sit here every month and tell you the same thing, and I'm sure you all know my feelings about good quality HMOs. At Apical, we could not be more passionate about providing our clients with high-end, fully compliant, well-designed shared living spaces. We have lots of repeat clients who share that vision, and some of whom I represent with properties on the agenda today. I recently invited you all to a HMO we have fully project managed from start to finish, and I was disappointed to only receive one positive response. I wanted to say thank you to Councillor Shah for his response and his willingness to see for himself a HMO within his ward and remain open to both supporting landlords and residents. While I appreciate HMOs can have a very negative perception in the community, the only way this is going to change is by positive engagement with residents and councillors. I also extended that invite to the neighbouring properties, both of whom I've stayed in continuous dialogue with throughout the build, and both of whom were delighted to see the finished result. The house has been marketed for just over a week, and we have 5 of the 7 rooms already secured, 5 of whom are doctors at QA. The neighbours have previously objected strongly to the application, fearing antisocial behaviour. Both neighbours are now extremely pleased to have so many doctors living next door. We've designed many HMOs in Portsmouth and surrounding areas, and our designs have never been subject to refusal of a HMO licence. We ensure all of our designs are fully compliant with planning, building control and HMO licensing, and we work hard to ensure we stay at the forefront of any changes to any legislation to ensure our client has the best possible experience with us. With regards to 59 Manners Road specifically, the change of use is for C4 HMO to an 8-person HMO. The description does state it's a change from 5 persons. However, I wanted to stress that the applicant can lawfully use this property under the current C4 planning permission for 6 persons. Therefore, I believe in reality today, the increase you are considering is for 2 persons only. The application has previously been to committee and presented by another agent for certificate of lawful development for the proposed change of use. This was refused as members felt the increase of occupants was a material change requiring planning permission. Whilst the applicant is mindful of advice of officers that an increase of 1 or 2 persons to an existing HMO does not need planning permission, as you as members disagree, the applicant has chosen to reapply for full planning permission. This particular property on Manners Road is much larger and wider than the majority of houses along this road, which can be seen on the block plan submitted with the application. It is almost twice the width of the adjoining properties at the rear on Telephone Road. All 8 bedrooms have been achieved without the usual rear extension into the rear garden, which is unusual in this area. This leaves the residents with a much larger outdoor amenity area than you as members usually see on student houses. Instead, the only addition at ground floor level is a small side extension, which provides the occupants with a wider communal area. Double doors then lead onto a larger than average patio and lawned garden. All bedrooms meet or exceed 10 square metres. The required communal area for 8 persons when all bedrooms meet the 10 square room size is 22.5, and this property provides 27.99 square metres, which is in excess of that requirement. There is also an additional basement area which the tenants have further utilised for storage. This provides a further 9 square metres of space which the tenants also benefit from. 4 of the bedrooms have the benefit of an ensuite, and the 4 remaining rooms share a bathroom and a separate WC on the first floor. Again, this exceeds the requirement. The owner of this property is a surgeon at QA Hospital and has 2 student HMO properties, both well managed, and both have received no record of complaints from the agent in his years of ownership. The application is fully compliant with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with the Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning document. The planning officer has recommended this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask you all to fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, questions? Councillor Sanders.
Thanks. Just another declaration. I do live in a HMO. It's just a personal interest, but not a prejudicial one in this case. I've also had representations from Councillor Gerarda and Councillor Horton about Manners Road and waste issues in Manners Road, which I've referred on to the team. That's not necessarily relevant to this application, but just to provide some context. I'm a bit confused with some of the things in the report, so I just wanted some clarification from colleagues. The first thing, I think Carrie-Anne has noted that there's existing 5 occupants in there, but there's a licence for 6. Elsewhere in the document, it talks about a 4-bedroom HMO as well. It's tad confusing for me, and maybe I'm being thick here. But given that it talks about in 3.2, it talks about a 3-bedroom dwelling to an 8-bedroom HMO. It also talks about the property needing a licence, where if it has got something for up to 6 people, it should have a mandatory licence anyway. So the licensing status for me is confusing, and I'm sure it will be clarified by Ian and colleagues. What this actually is, and I'm looking at paragraph 3.2, which says the proposed application seeks to convert an existing 3-bedroom residential dwelling, not a HMO, because they would have said, to an 8-bedroom HMO. I would seek some clarification. Those are the comments of the highways engineer, I accept, but it would be useful to have that. I'd also want some clarification from Ian and colleagues about paragraph 5.12, which is in the context of the Campbell judgment, whereby they say that the change of use in this instance is fundamentally different to the existing 4-bed HMO use, my emphasis, because that's not 3.2, and it's distinguishable to the Campbell appeals and distinct from previous applications. I understand that because there's a significant number of people who are being in, and it says it's considered to be a material change of use constituting development requiring planning permission and does not benefit from the Campbell-based fallback position to the contrary, so it's got to be assessed against the policy of the local plan. Given that we don't know how many it's not clear from the report how many bedrooms there are, or how many people live in it, it'll be useful to get some clarification, Ian and planning colleagues. Thank you.
Certainly, and I'll start with the apology because you have highlighted 2 errors in the report. So to be absolutely clear, the existing use of the building is not in C3. It is a HMO, and it's within use class C4. So 1.4, that where it says class C3, that is wrong. It is use class C4, as is evident elsewhere in the report, as you've identified, Councillor Saunders. And similarly, the number 4-bed HMO at 512 is incorrect, as is evident elsewhere. It is a 5-bed HMO. I'll check exactly what it was last licensed for. It's my understanding it was last licensed as a 5-bed HMO and last used accordingly. I believe the point that the agent was making was as a 5-bed HMO, it has been use class C4, so no planning permission. Obviously, you need licence. No planning permission is needed to change from a 5-bed HMO to a 6-bed HMO, or indeed a 4-bed HMO, all within the same use class. In this case, that 5-bed HMO is changing to an 8-bed HMO, and that does require planning permission in the professional judgment, and that is the distinction officers are drawing, and indeed this committee drew in the previous LDC application between the Campbell property examples and this one, because it is a 5-bed changing to 8. If it had moved to a 6 and it had been occupied as a 6-bed HMO, then a different judgment, but that's a development. 5 to 6, a development that doesn't need planning permission because the use classes order allows for it, but it is nevertheless a change in the occupation that would have been at one stage. And back to some comments we heard earlier from Councillor Horton, it is a natural intent, I won't say a flaw, it is a natural intent of land use planning to allow incremental change. So yes, you can go from 5 to 6 and then 6 to 7, potentially with less need for planning permission. Judgment applies, as members well know, but going from 5 to 8 does need planning permission. That's the conclusion we drew on the previous lawful development certificate, and hence the application before you now. Hopefully, and apologies for those two typos in the report, hopefully that does clarify that confusion.
It does.
Okay, we can have confidence there are no other errors in the report.
So I've just gone through it, and I'm in liaison with the case officers just to make absolutely sure that is the case. I can't see any other errors. The fundamental presumptions within it, of course, wouldn't change, and so apologies. I think they're probably typos from using previous reports.
Okay, all right, members, anything else? Comments? Okay, I shall move the officer's recommendation to grant planning permission. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Smythe. Well, we've rehearsed this conversation, haven't we? That we're in this impossible situation sometimes. Okay, is there anything else from people? Kieran.
Just before we go to the votes, to save any confusion, Councillor Vernon Jackson, you arrived late, and Councillor Shah, you arrived late as well, so you won't be voting on this item. Yeah.
Okay, members, those in favour of moving the officer's recommendation, please indicate. Okay, against? Abstentions? Okay.
The motion passes. I only made that 3 in favour, none against, and 3 abstentions. I think it was missing an abstainer. You got 4 abstentions, Ian. Apologise. Doesn't change the outcome. The planning permission's granted.
Thank you. Thank you, Kieran. Councillor Shah, welcome. Any declarations of interest?
No, nothing to declare. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We move on. Ian, sorry, just to add this into the kind of mix. Should we do Thurburn next? Sorry, members, I'm trying to be accommodating to as many people as I can today. Which, well, thank you. So Thurburn is next, members.
Okay, 12 Thurburn, yes, I think I've got it now. just draw members' attention to the SMAT, where we've just made it a minor correction to condition 4. There's a typo in the plan reference there, so do please note that. This is an application for the change of use of a C3 dwelling house to a 7-bed HMO. Members will note paragraph 1.6, this application was previously, or an application, I must stress, an application was previously refused here, which will obviously be a key material consideration for judgment. There is the property in Thurburn Road, as you can see there. It is the only HMO in the relevant area, so we're well within 10%, as indeed, of course, was the case beforehand. The application determination, as laid out in 1.6, previously turned on the standard and quality of the accommodation, in particular the usable floor space that was derivable in bedrooms 2 and 3, and thus the acceptability of having a smaller combined living space of 20 of less than 34 in that case. So what the applicant has done is appoint new agents, resurveyed the building and rearranged the rooms to maximise the usable area. This is the previously submitted scheme. Bedroom 2 is on the left-hand image, the bottom right of the left-hand image, and bedroom 3 is in the middle image, bottom left of that image there. When we look at the new proposed floor plan, unhelpfully inverted, bedroom 2 therefore top left of the left-hand image, and bedroom 3 top right of the middle image. That I'm sure was extremely confusing, so we've provided these illustrations as well, which are included in paragraph 5.6 of the report, in addition to being in the presentation. As you can see, with the accurate measurement of the rooms and the reorientation of bathrooms and entrance doorways to minimise corridors that may be of less utilisation. Officers are now satisfied that both bedroom 2 and bedroom 3 are over a 10-metre threshold of usable space, and consequently this allows justifies a lower communal living space, in this case 23.5, which is above the 22.5 recommended requirements. So now officers are entirely comfortable to recommend that this is a scheme that provides rooms that are of adequate size to enable people to both sleep and recreate, which is obviously the motivation behind allowing that slightly smaller kitchen dining space, and it is therefore fully compliant with your policies, in addition to, as I say, to be in an area where there are currently no other HMOs. We have a few images of the building under construction, which are probably of little use to you, so I'll leave you on that image, and happy to take any questions. Again, I think for this one, we have the agent and Councillor Simpson, obviously, doing deputations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simpson, 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually the third time I'm reading on the same application. Actually, I think even in the same year. I can't remember when it was first approved for a 6-bedroom C4. When it was approved as when it was first approved as a C4, I wasn't in favour of it. When it comes to HMOs in these family roads, I think it's just coming to a point where we just won't have family roads. But my real concern here is that it was approved as a 6-bedroom HMO, and then literally 6 months later, the living room, which had a lovely image of a TV, it was a lovely space that after they have a long day's work, they go have some food, they sit down, they eat, and then they sit in this living room. 6 months later, that lovely living room, which is what, not only because the dimensions of the rooms, but it was sold to the committee, that lovely living room, better quality for the tenants, is now, not surprising, another bedroom. Now, it was dismissed, I believe, in the last time it was here. I can't remember if it wasn't because it wasn't too big enough, but I raised concerns the fact that it was next to the communal room. And these walls will not be brick walls, these walls will not, will be thin. And it just makes me question why change from what would be classed as a good 6-bedroom HMO to suddenly an extra room. It just, for me personally and for probably residents, it just screams of greed. But I think my real concern here is, you know, when I've spoken to residents, they've said, well, even though it was refused as a 7-bedroom HMO, the landlord and the builders on site are saying, oh no, it's going to be 7-bedroom. So they knew they were going to appeal it and come back, which I think is really disappointing. But I also, you know, and I won't speculate too much, but let's just say that there was some cowboys beforehand and there's a lot of money lost, and that's probably another reason why they're going for a 7-bedroom HMO. I just find this whole thing really disappointing that we're having super HMOs in family roads all over, I want to say Hilsey and Cotner and Nelson. And I really hope that the committee look at this and say, you know what, we've approved this for a 6-bedroom HMO. It should remain as a 6-bedroom HMO. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you. As Ian touched on, this application was presented to committee previously with drawings from another architect and presented by another agent.
As well, do you think you could speak up and speak a little less fast? Because
sorry.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
We want to hear what you've got to say.
As Ian's touched on, this application has been presented to committee previously with drawings from another architect and presented by another agent. The application was refused. The previous floor plans did not provide a true 10 square metre bedroom 3, using an L-shaped corridor entrance to inflate the floor area size, and bedroom 2 also did not make best use of the floor area available. We've adjusted the ensuite to provide a more usable space within both rooms. Taking on board members' comments from that committee meeting regarding the bedroom being next to a communal area, our client has also added acoustic soundproofing to the dividing wall, which will reduce noise levels for the occupant of bedroom 2. This committee have approved many ground floor bedrooms sharing a dividing wall with communal area, at least 5 over the last few months. And this was not a necessary requirement for our client, yet after watching the committee meeting back, he was keen to respond to members' comments and provide the best possible living conditions for his tenants. The house will be finished to a high specification, as our client is keen to offer his tenants high-end accommodation. The property will be professionally managed, and if any issues, if they arise, will be dealt with promptly. All bedrooms now meet or exceed 10 square metres. The required communal area for 7 persons when all bedrooms meet this 10 square metres, as you all know, is 22.5, and this property exceeds that. All of the bedrooms benefit from additional ensuite, which also exceeds the requirement. Due to the previous application and this sort of confusion over measurements, these rooms have been remeasured with a planning officer in attendance on site and verified. So absolutely confident that what you see on the screen is correct. The property has rear access for cycles. An existing outbuilding is in the process of being upgraded to provide weatherproof storage for cycles. The outbuilding also has electricity installed so tenants are able to charge electric bikes if they choose to have them. This further encourages tenants to use sustainable transport. This application fully complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with the Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning document. The planning officer has recommended this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask you all to fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Members' questions? Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to check a couple of just the status of various things. In 1.4, we talk about the approved HMO, which was approved by this committee on the 16th. Well, was approved on the 16th of June last year. It says, though the potential use under Class C4 has not yet been carried out at the site, as that's mentioned in the highways engineer's comments later on, the approved HMO, how much weight do we give to the fact that the potential use just hasn't happened?
It depends on the judgment you're making, if I say. So it hasn't happened, hence the need to be a 7-bed HMO. Okay. There is a need for plan permission because its last lawful use was a C3 dwelling house. Again, the applicant could lawfully occupy it as a 6-bed HMO under the plan permission they have, and then we'll have that debate around 6 to 7 changes, that incremental issue. Yeah. That's not what they're doing. They're leapfrogging from C3 to 7-bed, hence plan permission is needed. So that C4
so we disregard
the
June 2022 decision.
But the June 2022 decision is extraordinarily relevant when you're looking at mix and character. It has already been judged by this council this is an appropriate location for an HMO, for example, unsurprisingly in light of the percentage mix, etc. So it's extremely material in that nature of judgment. And similarly, things like proximity of bedrooms to kitchens and layout, etc. As has been mentioned, we're talking about, in truth, the variation, if you will, between the two thing that this council has found to be acceptable and what we're now being asked to judge is that lounge. So any other element to it is a different debate to have. So it's extremely material to that. So the materiality of that previous decision is dependent on the judgment you're trying to apply it to.
Okay. That's actually pretty clear, and thank you for that, Ian. My other question was around, we have had a reason for refusal in the 29th of August 2023, and this is one where I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure local residents are aware of what we can and can't do as a committee, so there's no lying about it. The reason refusal has been said is basically the layout of bedrooms 2 and 3. And presumably on that basis, we have to look at the reasons for refusal. If we wanted to refuse it again, let's say, we would have to go on the basis of what the original refusal decision was, as opposed to anything else we've looked at. Is that reasonable?
In short, yes. You must make reasonable decisions, and thus they must be consistent with previous decisions of the council. So, obviously, if anything else has changed, then you can change your mind on it. But where there are no variations between June 2022 and now, then it would be not reasonable behaviour to all of a sudden refuse it on mix and balance, for example.
Thank you. That's helpful to explain. Thank you. Judith.
Thank you, Chair. Can we go back to the floor plans, please? The ones, I remember us dealing with this application before, and I just wanted to satisfy myself and perhaps others that the reduction of the amount of floor space that's taken by, as it were, inner corridors is clear from the plans. But I just wondered what actual living space was left, for example, in the bottom left, I think it's bedroom 3 now. You can see it's a bigger area on the proposed plan, but there's still a bit of corridor in there. And the same logic goes for the ground floor layout and the current, because the bedroom in fact is a little bit narrower than it was, and I wondered if we were satisfied that the actual livable area was satisfactory. And my second question, which is slightly related to that, is I'm not absolutely clear from the plans how access to the house is obtained. Where is the front door?
To deal with the first question, are we satisfied that they are adequate rooms in width and layout? Yes, we are. They're pretty standard, if you will, in those layouts. The bits of corridor, I'll go back to that. The little bits of corridor, as you can see, and it's the right-hand images of the current proposal. Yes. They are included in the measurement you have in the report because they still have a function. Obviously, they're not, you can't really recreate in them. They have a function, but to also give you the further reassurance, if one was to exclude even those bits of corridor, which I'm not sure is a reasonable interpretation of our guidance, but if one was, the remaining rectangle is still over 10 metres. So any way you looked at it, we are satisfied these are good rooms.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to have checked.
Front door, left-hand image is the ground floor. As you can see, it's through an entrance porch, so it's top right of the far left image.
Okay.
So you can't, just to be clear, on those previous plans showing previous ground floor and current ground floor layout, you can't actually see where the front door
No, for the red line comparison plans, we've just zoomed into the rooms. Oh. This is the back of the building, and you zoom back out to include the front of the building as well. That's where the front entrance is, obviously.
Can we just have a moment to look at that? To
prejudge your next question, say yes. Big access through to the rear is through that front door, down the corridor, and then a 90-degree right turn into the combined kitchen space and then through the large doors at the back. So there is a 90-degree right turn, but again, not unusual or unreasonable in our view. If one was to move people or bicycles through that space.
That, very well anticipated, and thank you very much. It is, of course, a wider kitchen than where sometimes the concern about bicycles is very acute. Thank you. Rear access, great, thank you. I think it'd be helpful if plans sort of showed that a bit more comprehensively sometimes. Thank
Yes,
you.
it
You can
comes
see
up.
the rear access on this image there, if that assists. Yeah.
I'm sure that's been noted. Okay, members, comments? I shall. Oh,
Thank you, Chairman. I note that Councillor Simpson's deputation, and we're always put in a difficult position because the law does not give us as much power to be able to make decisions about HMOs as we would like, because MPs from all parties have refused to give us that power. So we are limited in what we can do. So even though we have the toughest HMO policies anywhere in the south of England, the limits of what we can do are small. In some ways, this is an example of where the Planning Committee has worked well. We've identified an issue, and the developer has gone off and addressed the issues that we thought were poor, and has come back to this committee having redone it to provide a better outcome for people who will live in this property in the future. So much as I don't like HMOs, the law doesn't give us the ability to be able to turn this down unless we're going to put a large amount of money in the budget for losing appeals and having costs awarded against us. And personally, I hate giving money, particularly council taxpayers' money, to lawyers. Therefore, I'm sorry, but if we turn this down, this would go to appeal and it would win, and therefore we would just be giving people in that area a false hope, which we cannot deliver because MPs in all parties refuse to give us that power. So it therefore seems to me we have no alternative but to say that we should grant planning permission for this, and therefore I'm happy to propose that, having addressed the issues we raised, that the developer gets planning permission.
thank you, Councillor Vernon-Jackson. Darren?
Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to second that. That's why one of the reasons I asked all those questions around refusals and what we can and can't do as a committee, just so that people are aware. There is one comment I would like to make, though, which is actually a point that both Carrie-Anne and Russell and Ian have made earlier, which is around what's called interstitial development. The movement upwards by one person, which the planning system allows, but in my experience, and I'm sure in the experience of other colleagues, drives local residents up the wall, because they feel that people like Carrie-Anne are not telling them the truth, when in fact it is not up to people like Carrie-Anne, but it is the planning system that allows that to happen, and it is one of the main reasons why people get very, very unhappy. And I'm sure we've all had a few of those in our walls from time to time. No, I have. So I'm just saying that the system is actually letting people down, and that is deeply frustrating, and I hope it can change. Thank you, Chris.
Indeed. Okay, members, anything else? So we have a proposal to move the officer's recommendations. Those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous vote in favour. Planning permission is granted.
Thank you, Kieran. We'll move on. Councillor Winnington, you're here to give a deputation. If you could find a microphone. We will move Henderson Road.
Thank you, members.
Yep.
Sorry, did you want me to come in now? I thought
you have to wait for a presentation first.
I thought you were waiting for me to come in.
No, well,
Chris.
we're all waiting for you.
I haven't been to planning for a very long time.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. It's nice to see. All right. Okay. We have to do a presentation first.
Thank you. 37 Henderson Road. This is a change of use of a use class C3 dwelling to a dual use C3, C4 application. There is the location of the property. There is the property itself. As you can see, it's in an area of very little HMO provision. So the total percentage is 4.84%, well below our 10% allowance. That is the existing dwelling. That is the proposed dwelling. As you can see, 6 beds shown, and on the second floor, a large communal study space in addition to the necessary communal space. The room sizes are all laid out in paragraph 8.10, and as you can see, they are all 10 metres or above as bedrooms, consequently allowing the lower size for a communal space to be applied, and that is exceeded at 24.4 square metres, notwithstanding the additional study on the second floor. All the other space standards are met in accordance with your adopted guidance. Images of the existing and proposed elevation, so you can see the cross-section through the building there, quite small, apologies. And there is the extension being carried out by permitted development on the rear of the property when this image was taken. I'll leave you back with that image. Perhaps we have deputations from Councillor Wellington and from the agent Simon Hill, and obviously happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Wellington, over to you. 6 minutes to give your deputation.
Thank you very much, Chris, and hello members. As I say, this is the first time I've been to planning since pre-pandemic, so last time I was in planning it was upstairs in the executive meeting room.
You must come more often. Do come.
Obviously we don't have too many HMOs in East Lynne Craneswater. So members, I'm going to bring your attention to some of the comments that have been made by local residents on this. This has had quite a lot of interaction. The vast majority of the residents who have been responding to this live in the vicinity of this application on Henderson Road itself. And obviously we have had the information that it's 4.8% in the 50-metre radius. However, I do ask that this is refused for a few reasons. This is in a parking permit zone, and though on the information around this application it talks about the fact that between 3 and 6 people doesn't make that much difference on how many cars will be used, because that's what the what is said in the policy that works with these kind of HMOs. Of course, this is complete nonsense. What we also have here is at the moment, because of the premium of parking spaces in this particular parking zone, that you can't have more than a permit per household, which has been said quite a few times in the deputations, in the written comments from local residents. Therefore, the 2 cars that allegedly this household could have anyway is irrelevant. And indeed, of course, going from a household which will probably have no more than 2 adults to one having 6 will very probably not just increase the amount of cars in this area, but will also knock on to the area to the east where there is no parking zone. And therefore, that is a detrimental impact, not just to the immediate vicinity, but also further afield. The other bit I really want to stress about is, is about the issue to do with the alleyway at the back. So it has been mentioned by Mr. Cashin, whose mother lives next door, and also by I think it's Mr. Otten and Mr. Lodwick, and they talk about the alleyway shared by access is shared by 5 properties. And he said at the moment it's primarily used for getting rid of bulky waste, receiving deliveries of garden and DIY items. And it's only possible to unlock the alleyway gates from the inside, which provides security. They talk about the fact that there was already going to be a bike shed in 37, and therefore the likelihood is that people will be trying to get in and out with their bikes. If you can only unlock it from the inside, this may not be very practical, and actually what you'll end up with is you'll get people leaving the gates open, and therefore that would decrease the security for that area. So I think there's terms to not pass this HMO, which are not necessarily on the standard ones, but on the actual security and indeed practical considerations for this area. This is not an area which has no parking zone. This is not an area where people can have as many cars as they like in a household, and the normal practical considerations are there. It is actually an area with a parking zone and also where the normal amount of cars that you would expect for this kind of thing do not apply. And I will put on, state again that the nonsense that a household with 3 adults compared to a household with 6 adults will not have more potential cars is just ridiculous. I know what they say, and I know, unfortunately, the Planning Committee has to take that into account. But I do think that those objections that have been put forward by 19 local residents and by myself are entirely valid. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Winnington. Okay, Mr. Hill, 6 minutes.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to deputise. I want to stress this property I'm completing on the behalf of the applicant, which is Mr. Walker, whose aim primarily with this property is to provide high quality accommodation for the young people in this city. So I also want to secondly confirm that this property has had its plans approved by Building Control. So that means that they're happy with the plans that have been submitted. The application number is PF 231663. Personally, I'm passionate about providing high quality HMOs in Portsmouth, which I hope we could all agree provides some accommodation which is desperately needed within the city. I'd like to thank the planning officer on this case particularly for a very, very comprehensive report. Probably one of the most comprehensive ones I've seen in quite some time. I'd also like to point out that this property has rear access via an alleyway which is accessed off of Ringwood Road. Now, importantly, this is of course beneficial for the bike storage at the rear of the property, and typically is considered beneficial by a fire risk assessor, but it's not necessary. That is to say that the majority of properties do not have that rear access, and they are still able to be HMOs. We're still able to put bike storage in the rear garden, and we put hardwaring flooring throughout the ground floor, but it is a potential benefit. Off the back of the comments made by the councillor a moment ago, I've been in correspondence with Mr. Walker, who says, I'm more than happy to speak to the residents and change the broken gate at the rear of the alleyway at my cost for a completely new secure one, which can have access and can be locked from both sides. If that is an example of a developer being quite reasonable with local residents and trying to come up with a solution that works for everybody, I don't know what is. Also, I note that one of the objectors about the alleyway, Mr. Cashew, doesn't actually have any access to that. That's nothing to do with his property. So, the planning officer who obviously did this case has said, having regard to all material planning considerations and representations, it is concluded that the proposed change of use is acceptable and would be in accordance with the relevant policies of the Portsmouth Plan and of the objectives of the National Planning Policy Framework. The recommendation is for approval. I would ask all of you who are voting on this to look favourably on this application. It is going to be professionally managed, as all of our HMOs are, by a specialist HMO letting agency. There are only 4.8% HMOs, which is clearly less than the 10% maximum. We hold a waste carrier's licence to get rid of any excess waste once the tenants are in situ. Portsmouth has some of the highest and toughest HMO regulations in the majority of this country. The bike storage will be achieved in the rear garden through what I believe was a bomb shelter, but certainly a a block-built shed in the garden, which is more than suitable for bike storage, although obviously I'm sure that would be secured via a condition. It is important to note that all of the bedrooms are over 10 metres squared, but particularly I draw your attention to bedroom 2, which is 10 metres squared without the additional extension. The owner has chosen to put that extension in to increase the size of the bedroom to roughly 13.5 square metres, but it isn't required in order to meet the 10 metres squared. It just makes a better standard of living and more space. Just to quickly quote a couple more extracts from the planning officer, it says the proposals comply with the aims and objectives of policies PCS 19 and 20 of the Portsmouth Plan. On the basis of the information supplied with this application, the detailed guidance is considered applicable and the resulting layout is considered satisfactory. Considered to result in a satisfactory standard of living accommodation. My point there is the planning officer and the guidance all think that the layout of this property and the accommodation provided are satisfactory. Next, it says the HMO SPD is supported by an assessment of the need for and supply of these. And there is not an over-concentration of HMOs within the area, and therefore the impact of one HMO would not be significantly harmful, i.e. that there is the capacity for this HMO. Concerns have been raised by local residents regarding potential increase in crime and antisocial behaviour. However, the council doesn't have any evidence to support that HMOs result in higher levels of crime or antisocial behaviour than a C3 dwelling house. I also note the councillor who quite a few times suggested that the council's own guidance was nonsense, the planning officer's opinion was nonsense, and the opinion of the parking and transport officer was nonsense. I'm not sure how you can say that when that's the experts that in that case have clearly given their guidance, and then a lay person decides that they disagree with them, and so they'll call them out as nonsense on a recorded video. But ultimately, the council's parking SPD sets out the level of off-road parking for new developments and requires 2 off-road parking spaces. It also is the same for an HMO as well. So ultimately, with regards to parking, the planning officer has specifically said that would not be a reason for refusal, and that would be unlikely to be defendable at appeal. C4 element of the proposal is whether it's a 3-bedroom house, but ultimately a house occupied by a large family or adult children could potentially own another vehicle, which is also in the policy. We've got additional refuse and recycling bins that we will supply, which has also been mentioned by the licensing officer. As far as I'm concerned, I think every single aspect of this application that could have been addressed has been, and the guidance from the planning officer could not be more clear that they recommend approval and that it is compliant with every single policy that is required to be so. Thank you very much, and I hope you look favourably on the application.
Thank you very much. What does your stopwatch say? Okay. Members, questions? I mean, it's a useful point to remind people that the job of this committee is to look at the material planning considerations of each application in front of us. We may have personal views about some of the other things, but that's not our job to apply those. Councillor Smythe, comments?
Yes. I'm, as ever, will have some sympathy with some of the people objecting to this application, but I don't think we have any choice but to approve it. I would like to say and place on record that I'm really disappointed that this application hasn't moved straight to the 7-person HMO, but there's a perfectly good study, shower room, not required additional, and I'm really becoming quite appalled that people think it's a good thing to wait, put in another application, require us all to spend a lot of time looking at it, and I hope that especially the better-known developers of HMOs stopped doing this, because it seems to me I'll eat my hat if this doesn't come back as an application for 7 people. It has a study and a shower room next door, and I think it's a real gross waste of public money to have to do this twice. I'll eat my hat, it's on public record. But yes, I would propose that we approve this And if we need a condition on cycle storage, then I suggest we put it in. I couldn't find reference to that. I think it might be quite important to have a condition on cycle storage, even though we've been told it's there and it'll be used, particularly if there are going to be difficulties with using the back passage communally.
Condition 3 is imposed for cycle storage.
There is one, is it? There. I couldn't see it in the...
Okay, so it's there.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay, Judy, I can ask. Yep. Anybody wish to second? I shall second proposal. Okay, is there anything else from anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion in front of us to move. Okay, we may... Something very odd's happening. Okay, we'll persevere while we can. Hopefully that wall's not going to collapse at any moment. Okay. We'll carry on. The motion in front of us is to approve the officer's move the officer's recommendations with the conditions. Those in favour, please indicate. Against? I think that's it.
That was 5 votes in favour and 1 against. So the motion passes and planning permission is granted.
Thank you, Kieran. Okay. For anybody who wasn't here right at the beginning, this might be a little confusing. We now move to Shadwell Road.
Apologies, members. I will attempt to continue. We're just going to send one of the officers to go and find out what's going on. I trust you can all hear me. Oh, excuse you can hear me now. 46 Shadwell, a change of use from use class C3 to a 7-bed HMO, below 10%. All the rooms meet our standardised guidance. Happy to take any questions.
With some energy. Councillor Simpson, if you want to do battle with the noise.
I will try. Luckily, being on the stage for a long time, I can speak a lot louder than that, so I will speak a little bit louder, and then once it goes, I will try and auto go down. Well, firstly, thank you, Ian, for a very descriptive description of this. One of my concerns with this is, so I used to sit in planning, and I thought to myself, it's really good to rotation with councillors and give other councillors opportunities to experience the wonderful planning committee and, learn a bit about planning. But because of 3 particular roads, I find that I'm here every week anyway, reading deputations. One of these roads is Shadwell Road, the other one is Aura Road, the other one's Ophir Road, and now it's becoming a new 4th, which is now Wadham Road. And guess what? They are all next to each other. Now, as we well know, the 10% 50-metre radius is a radius. It's not per road. That's what we've chosen to do. My concern here is where they are next to each other, and we're saying the 10% has not been met, but yet, I can't even think of the last planning committee we didn't have Shadwell Road on the HMO list. And it's been near enough, and I would say it's well over 50%. And I know this has been done before, and this is directly out to Ian and his team, can you really investigate Shadwell Road in the survey? Because we are getting still reports of how many HMOs are down this road. And it's always this road that comes up, and there's always this road that I mention. It's literally got, I started to wonder if it has more HMOs than it does actually have family homes. But yet the 10% is never met. And even though Aura Road and Ophir Road are also getting HMOs, it's not coming under as the 10%, even though it's a radius. So I'm really concerned that we are getting more and more in this specific area, but yet the 10% is never being reached. Not to even mention the fact that, as I said before, these are originally 3-bedroom homes made into super HMOs. I'm really concerned this. I'm really concerned we are jamming. We're not fully aware. And we need to look in this road and spend some actual time to do a survey and investigation. I really, really hope that can be met, because every time we've asked, it's kind of been like, oh, well, we did it so many years ago, and we found when then we asked about how was the report conducted. I just feel this needs to be a lot more thorough, because I'm being told that there is more potentially illegal HMOs, as well as the fact that we've got the flats, but obviously we don't include them, unfortunately. But it's, it feels so targeted, and I think we need to get an actual number. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson. Carry on.
This is an application for change of use from a C3 residential dwelling to a sui generis 7-person HMO. Sorry. I know there is a previous planning approval for this one for a C4. I take on board Councillor Smythe's comments regarding the change from a C4 to sui generis and the 2-step process that we have historically used. That was purely down to the time taken to deal with these applications, as has been stated before. But we are now encouraging our clients to move away from this step and apply straight from C3 to sui gen, as you will have seen from the recent applications that I've been presenting. All bedrooms meet or exceed 10 square metres, and the bedrooms range from 13.5 down to 10.6. The required area for 7 persons when all bedrooms meet the 10 square metre room size is 22.5.
Sorry. It's sort of impossible. 1 second, Karen. Do we know what's happening?
Yes, tremendous news for Portsmouth. Guildhall is redeveloping the base downstairs in the basement. As an exciting new performance space for young people. That is, however, reverberating up into the Guildhall. We have passed that message on to reception and asked if they can withhold works while we complete this meeting. We are hopeful of that case, but someone's obviously got to get down to the constructing workers in the basement.
Do you want me to shout louder or just wait?
One sec.
Okay, so this property has 29 square metres of floor area, which is an excessive requirement. All the bedrooms have a benefit from an ensuite, and an additional WC is provided at ground floor level for the comfort of the residents. I note Councillor Simpson's comments about the database not being incorrect. With the introduction of the new licensing scheme, this council is about to have a better idea of what HMOs are in the city than they've ever had. So hopefully this will clear up some of these discrepancies with numbers and HMOs in the 10% radius. This application fully complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with the Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning document. The planning officer has recommended this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask you to support that recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure I want to continue with this noise. Kieran?
Well, I mean, that's at your discretion, Chair. I would rather not abandon a whole meeting and have it left over Christmas, personally. I wonder if the executive meeting room might be available, but that would mean cutting the feed, moving the room. It wouldn't be in accordance with the summons that's been issued.
Shall we? Let's try and get this one done, and let's go and see if we can get a view from downstairs about whether they're going to be able to stop. Okay, members. Sorry, Karen. Sorry to interrupt your deputation. Members, questions, comments. Judith.
Thank you for going straight for a 7-bedroom here. I think that picks up my concerns about the tremendous waste when that's not done. I would like to move to a conditional permission as described in the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. That's seconded by Councillor Smith. Councillor Candish, you're indicating?
I was going to second it, but got beaten to it by John.
You've got to be quick around here. Anything else, members? Okay, so the motion is to move the officer's recommendations. The conditions, those in favour, please indicate. Abstentions?
So that was a unanimous approval. Planning permission is granted.
Thank you. Members, we're going to have just a 5-minute leg stretch so I can find out what's happening with all the noise. Okay, thank you, everybody.